Okay, so what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to be going over our style of conjugate training. There are lots of different ways to run this sort of thing. It's all kind of based off of Westside Barbell methodology. There's been a lot of different twists and turns on how people interpret things, what works for them. I'm in no way saying that this is the best way to do this or this is the only way to do this. What I'm doing here is I'm just going over how we run our template and what I've found to work for the majority of the lifters that I work with, whether they be raw, multiply, or just athletes in general, or just people who want to get strong. So this is just a general outline for someone who might not be familiar with conjugate template. It's a 4-day split: max effort lower, max effort upper, dynamic lower, dynamic upper. Usually the split typically is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Max effort lower is a variation of a main movement, of your competition lift, some sort of variation to a 1-rep max. Same thing with max effort upper, except obviously it'll be a bench variation. Dynamic lower, dynamic upper are generally based off of speed and acceleration of the bar. So these are generally based off of percentages. Dynamic lower usually is 50, 55, and 60%, plus accommodating resistance bands, chains, what have you. With dynamic upper, typically what we do is a 35, 40, and 45% plus chains and bands. Sometimes we do rep work there instead. I'll go over more specifically that stuff later in the video. The last thing about conjugate training, and it's a big one, is accessories. So if you're doing this 4-day split and you're not hammering and pushing your accessories and the right accessories for you and what you need because of your weaknesses, none of this is going to work. This is where the strength lies in, is the accessories and picking the proper ones for what you need. So that's just a general outline, and now I'll go into more specific stuff with each specific day and what each one entails. All right, so for max effort lower, these are the 5 different things that we'll do, not necessarily in this order, and sometimes there might be one that we do 2 weeks in a row of the same sort of idea. So box squat variation, free squat variation, deadlift variation, a 3-rep max or 90% in your full gear if you're an equipped person for a single, and then a good morning variation. So the box squat variation, specialty bar or put chains on a bar or whatever. You can go as weird or as minimal as possible with that. The free squat variation, when we do that, it's in knee wraps. If you're a raw person, and you wear knee wraps, you can put on your knee wraps. That'll just be a specialty bar, free squat, 1-rep max. If you're an equipped person, we'll have them do bare knees, but in their briefs for the most part. And then the deadlift variation, I like to have the raw people that I work with pull off the floor. Gear people, I kind of leave it up to them. But we'll do deficits, block pulls, pull off the floor with bands, chains, reverse band, what have you. And then the 3-rep max, obviously there's really no such thing as a 3-rep max. It's just a term to use. You're basically doing a top set, doing triples until you can't get 3 anymore. It's important to try and make sure you get 3 reps and you don't just do 2 reps and then it turns into a single. With 3-rep max work, it's straight bar, competition, lift. So if we do a 3-rep max deadlift, it's going to be a heavy triple, straight weight off the floor. If it's a squat, it's going to be straight weight, no box, knee wraps, whatever you wear. If you're in equipment, like I said, 90% full gear just for a single. It's going to be like practice for your competition lifts. The good morning variation, that could be really anything, pyramids, or you can work up to a heavy triple, work up to a double and then work back down to sets of 20. This could be anything from good mornings off of pins, good morning out of straps, seated good mornings, cambered bar, safety squat bar, bow bar, whatever you want to do, heels together. That one always looks easy on paper, but it's incredibly difficult when you actually start doing it. So this is what our max effort lower looks like, and we rotate these. That way, if you have a hard time basically remembering how to free squat, you get to do that at least once a month, sometimes twice. But you also get the desired effect from box squatting heavy as well to work your hips and hamstrings and all that stuff that everybody knows about already. So that's what max effort lower looks like for us. Okay, so for max effort upper, these are the different variations that we use. Obviously, within each of these, there are variations as well, but this is generally what we do. So a high board, which is a 3 or a 4 board. Generally, I like to do that with straight weight and a straight bar. Gives people an opportunity to handle weight that they're never going to press in the near future, full range, and it kind of lets them handle weight that might scare them a little bit. So you kind of get to see if somebody is scared of big weights, if they can handle stuff. That's the next level that they're going to get to. The next thing would be a full range variation, generally against bands or chains. You could do a specialty bar or a combination of both. With all of these, if you're a raw lifter, I would have you pause, but specifically with the full range variations. Reverse band, heavy band, light band, just depends on what you're trying to figure out with that particular movement. A low board, which is a 1 or a 2 board. If you are in equipment, you'd be in a shirt, get a record off a 1 or a 2 board. Floor press. Now, if this isn't 10 days out, what we generally do is a close grip or a specialty bar. And then incline, which is generally done close grip as well. And then just like we do with max effort lower, max effort upper, we also do max triples. Obviously, it's not a true max because it's 3 reps. But for raw people, what they will do is they'll pause the first rep and then do 2 touch and goes after that. People in equipment, obviously they're not going to do a triple in their shirt, so they do this raw and it's just 3 touch and goes. So like I said, all of these have variations within them, but this kind of gives you the general idea of the different ones that we use and the reasons why we use them. Okay, so for dynamic lower, speed lower, whatever you would like to call it, generally the percentage on the bar is going to be 50, 55, and 60% plus bands and chains. We don't go crazy about the percentages of the bands and chains. Roughly 25% is what Louis Simmons always prescribed. That's an umbrella. So as long as you're close to that, you're fine. However, if somebody's moving weight very slow, we back off the bands and chains. We don't give them as high of a percentage there because this is about moving weight fast. So if you're moving it slow, it's not going to do anything for you. The squats are always done to a box for dynamic lower, whether raw or in equipment, always going to go to a box. Excluding very small percentage of people who might be really, really new to the sport and need a lot of extra practice with free squatting. Even at those times, usually what we'll do is have them do a 4x8 or something like that with a straight bar, free squatting, just so they can hammer that technique. As far as reps are concerned, 12x2, 10x2, 8x3, 5x5. It all depends on what you like and what you're trying to get out of the workout. So a 12x2 might be good for someone who has a hard time consistently taking the bar out of the rack or walking out the weight, whatever federation you may be competing in. You get 12 opportunities to take the bar out of the hooks. A 5x5 might be good for someone who has bad conditioning, or they're coming off of a meet, or they might have really small legs and you just want to get a hypertrophic effect and put on some muscle mass with there. So the reps just depend on what you're trying to have happen with the workout. Deadlift. So with a lot of the newer people, we like to have them do reps, maybe a 5x5. Sometimes that can get a little crazy as far as, recovery and whatnot. Otherwise, it's going to be percentage based, 40 to 60% plus a band. Again, not going crazy about the percentage of the band. If they're under a 500 pound deadlift, usually they're going to use doubled minis. And then anything over 600, they might go to monsters, depending on if they're fast off the floor, slow off the floor. As far as reps, rep scheme for the speed pulls, might do 15 singles, might do 10 singles, 8 triples. Again, it all depends what you can recover from and what you're trying to get out of it. Now, if you just did a 5x5 with your speed squats and you're actually absolutely destroyed, it might be smart to do, 7 doubles or maybe 7 singles, get your speed pulls in, and then get to your accessories. So a lot of this stuff is individualized with the dynamic work. What we have found is that this is the day that will mess up the whole week. So if someone goes outside of the prescribed percentage, outside of the prescribed reps, they'll have a hard time recovering for the following week. So this day is often looked at as an easy day, recovery type day. But if you're doing it properly with, short rest periods, it should be one of the harder days of the week. And this is the day that can screw you for the rest of your training and really blow you up when you're coming in a couple days later and you're trying to do max effort lower. So this is what we do. Again, it's very broad, and you kind of have to look at what you need specifically. Generally a 3-week wave. We change the bar every 3 weeks. Sometimes you just throw in a week of 60% with a different bar. If you want to get on schedule, going into a meet and making sure everything lines up with your meet prep. But this is generally how we run it and what we do. Okay, so for dynamic upper, this is a very broad explanation of this day because a lot of it is by feel. What we generally will do, 35, 40, 45% on the bar, plus a band or a chain. Again, the band is under an umbrella, generally 25%, but that's just as long as you're close to that and the bar is moving fast. If we're doing that sort of thing, it's going to be a 9x3. Change the bar every 3 weeks or so. Sometimes we'll do 2 weeks and change it. Just depends. Another thing that we'll do is a 5x5 with a 3-week wave. Again, that's by feel. Try and add weight each week. Sort of a progressive overload. So that's something for people who are relatively new. It's a good way to get a bunch of volume in. Again, you might get more hypertrophy. It's more time under the bar. So a big difference with what we found is with the raw people doing speed bench, they pause the first rep. And a lot of this is based on rhythm. People will say, it should be down and up, down and up, down and up. What we found was pausing the first rep really hammers in that cue that they're going to have to pause in a competition. And it just sort of really lays the foundation of pausing when you take something heavy. If you're doing that during speed work, when you're thinking about exploding out of the bottom, pausing really helps with that and helps you stay tight when you do have to pause with heavy weight. This stuff should move fast. If anybody starts slowing down, we'll always back them off with their percentage or their band and their chains. A lot of this, like I said, this is a day that should be fun and move really fast. Usually this is a day that we'll program more bodybuilder type accessories. And the main movement here is just get in, get it done, get a pump, and get out of the gym. So that's how we run our dynamic upper. Okay, so accessories. This is the bread and butter of conjugate training. I would love to sit here and list what I program for all of the trigger warning athletes. But that is most likely not going to do you any good because I don't know what you need. This is the toughest part of conjugate programming. Figuring out which accessories work for you for your weaknesses. That is the reason why people hire other people to tell them these things. They read all day to figure out how to assess these things. This is the toughest part. Now, generally, if you're just starting out, you can get a program with sort of cookie cutter accessories. They're gonna work. You're gonna get stronger. Period. The end. As you get a little more advanced, you're gonna need to tweak those things. What we generally do is we'll have an umbrella system, just like everything else. This is what everyone gets programmed for. And then as the lifters get to learn the system, and as we get to learn the lifters, we make little adjustments here or there to make sure that they're hitting what they need to be hitting for their specific weaknesses. And that could be as simple as, if your weakness is your triceps, and your back isn't necessarily a weakness, make sure you're doing your tricep exercises first after your main movement, and saving the back ones for the end, and then making sure you come back around and hit a tricep exercise before you're done. Little things like that can make all the difference. Another thing about accessories is doing them properly and not doing them with an ego. It's much more important to actually be hitting your rear delt with lighter weight than it is to get a heavier weight and all you're hitting is your trap, on your back, and you're cheating it the whole time. So accessories is where the strength lies. This is where you will get the strongest. This obviously is not the funnest part of the training, but what we try and hammer into our athletes is, this is what will bring you to the next level, the people who push their accessories. So I'd love to be more specific, but it really is individualized to each person. Like I said, there could be a blanket sort of system that you could follow, but once you get past novice, you're going to need a little more attention than that, to the details of what you need for your specific weaknesses. So in closing, what I wanted this video to be was informative and help narrow down some stuff for people. There's a lot of information about conjugate training. People tend to speak in absolutes when in reality everybody's different, so everyone needs different things within this programming. There's a lot of vague information out there, and I wanted to help kind of tighten up that circle and shed light on some things of how we do it. Again, I want to point out, this is just how we have found to be the most successful with our athletes. This is in no way saying that this is the best or the only way. It's just the best way for us, and how we've been successful in utilizing this methodology. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions or you need clarification of anything, all of the social media will be linked below the video. Share this around, give it a like or a comment, and I hope this was helpful.
Some